It's late. You're lying in bed staring at the ceiling. The silence feels loud, doesn't it? Your mind replays the day, what you didn't get done, where you should be by now, who seems to be ahead. Somewhere, someone your age is starting a company, buying a house, getting married, launching a podcast, becoming an influencer, saving the world. And you're just here, still trying to figure it out. Your heart races. You scroll through your feed, watching highlight reels of people living lives that feel 5 steps ahead of yours. A pit forms in your stomach. You whisper to yourself, "I'm behind." Behind who? Behind what? You can't say for sure, but the feeling is real, heavy, constant. Hello everyone, and welcome. Today I want to talk about a belief that has quietly and powerfully stolen joy from so many of us, the belief that we're behind, that everyone else is moving faster, doing better, living more fully, and that somehow we're lagging, stuck in some invisible race we never consciously signed up for. This video is a reminder, not a lecture, not a motivational cliche, but a reminder from one human to another. You are not behind, you are not late. You are on your own timeline, and that timeline is valid. Let's talk about that. We don't just wake up one day and suddenly feel like we're behind in life. That feeling builds over time, quietly, subtly, and sometimes invisibly. It's like water dripping into a bucket you didn't even know was under the faucet. One drop at a time, comparison, expectation, pressure, and then one day it overflows, and you're left there, soaked in this deep sense of inadequacy. It starts early. Think about it. From the moment we enter the school system, we're placed on tracks, milestones, deadlines. You should know this by now. You should have figured that out already. We're praised for being early and warned if we're late. The faster you read, the smarter you are. The quicker you solve math problems, the more ahead you seem. But what no one tells us is that speed doesn't equal depth. And moving quickly through life doesn't guarantee that you're moving meaningfully. Then comes adulthood, and it gets even louder. You start hearing questions like, where are you working? You still live at home? Are you seeing anyone? No kids yet? These aren't just small talk. They're measuring sticks disguised as curiosity. And if you're not careful, you start internalizing every one of them as a reflection of your worth. And then there's the internet, the ultimate comparison machine. You scroll for 5 minutes and suddenly feel like you're the only one who hasn't launched a business, written a book, gotten engaged, bought a house, or traveled to Bali. Everyone seems to have their life together, while you're still figuring out what you want for dinner tonight. You don't see their breakdowns, their bank accounts, their anxiety. You see their best angle, best lighting, best moment, and you compare it to your raw, unfiltered life. That's where the lie starts to root itself. I'm not doing enough. I'm not where I should be. I'm behind. But behind what? Who wrote the schedule you're using to judge yourself? Did you choose it, or did it choose you? Because here's the thing. Most of us are chasing timelines that were handed to us by someone else. Parents, teachers, society, culture. We never stop to ask if those timelines were even aligned with the kind of life we want to live. So now we find ourselves running, fast, stressed, constantly comparing, without ever checking where the finish line is, or if it even matters. Let's challenge this idea of being behind, because it's one of the most toxic illusions we're taught to believe. The idea that there's a universal life path, that everyone should be at the same place by the same time, is not just unrealistic, it's unnatural. Life is not a conveyor belt. It's not school where everyone's in the same grade and graduates on the same day. It's not a race where we all start at the same line, with the same shoes on the same surface. It's not even a competition, though we often treat it like one. Let me ask you something. When you're watching a movie, do you fast forward to the end just because someone else saw it before you? Of course not. You watch your story unfold, moment by moment, scene by scene. And every scene matters, even the slow ones. But that illusion, it's strong, especially when you see friends, classmates, coworkers moving on to what feels like the next level. You hear about someone getting married, or landing their dream job, or buying a house, and you start thinking, what am I doing wrong? But that's not the right question. The right question is, what's right for me right now? You're not on their path, you're on yours. And the moment you start honoring your own pace, everything changes. Because here's the truth that almost no one says out loud. There is no one definition of being ahead. There's only being aligned with your values, your desires, your truth. You can be 35, living with roommates, changing careers, and feel more fulfilled than someone who checked every box by 25 and now feels trapped by their own success. You can be 42, single, and still waiting to find love, and be more emotionally evolved than someone who married young but never truly knew themselves. You can be 28, working a job you don't love yet, and still be making more progress internally than someone who got promoted last week but is falling apart inside. Being on time is not about hitting deadlines. It's about honoring your direction. And just like nature, your life has seasons. There's a time for planting, a time for blooming, a time for resting, a time for replanting, but never, ever a time for rushing.
Think of a tree. One might shoot up quickly. Another might take years before its first branch reaches for the sky. But no one says the slow-growing tree is behind. Why? Because we intuitively understand that growth takes the time it takes. And some of the strongest roots take the longest to form. So, if you feel like you're taking longer, if your progress feels invisible, if your path feels winding and unclear, maybe that's not a sign of failure. Maybe it's a sign of something deeper, something real, something yours. I used to think that life was a race, that if I didn't run fast enough, I'd fall behind, that I had to keep pushing, keep climbing, keep proving, because if I slowed down, I'd lose. I didn't even know what I was trying to win. Maybe validation, maybe approval. But I ran anyway. And I know I'm not alone in this. We live in a world that worships urgency. Grind harder, hustle faster, sleep when you're dead. These mantras sound empowering, but they're exhausting. They don't leave room for rest, reflection, or rediscovery. They don't leave room for being human. We've been conditioned to believe that progress only counts when it's visible, when it comes with a certificate, a promotion, a post-worthy moment. But here's the hard truth I had to learn. Most real growth happens in silence, in the unseen, in the in-between. Unlearning the race mentality doesn't mean giving up on goals. It means redefining how you pursue them and why. Because if you're running towards something just because you think you should, you'll always feel empty when you get there. I know that feeling. I've hit goals that didn't feel like success. I've ticked boxes that felt more like cages. That's when I realized, it's not just about where you're going, it's about who you become along the way. So, how do you unlearn the race? You start by getting quiet. You listen to your inner voice, the one beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the performance. You ask yourself, what do I really want? Not what sounds impressive, not what gets applause, but what feels right. Then, you give yourself permission to move at your own speed. You stop sprinting towards someone else's finish line. You stop measuring your worth in achievements. You stop believing that rushing equals succeeding. You trade performance for presence. You replace pressure with patience. You stop running and start walking with purpose. Because the truth is, the race was never real. It was just an illusion. And once you see through it, you're free. Let me tell you something that changed everything for me. There is no late bloomer. There are only different bloomers, different timelines, different stories. We celebrate people who find success early, the prodigies, the young millionaires, the overnight sensations. But what about the ones who took the long road? The ones who failed 5 times before they figured it out? The ones who didn't peak in their 20s, but evolved in their 40s, 50s, or beyond. Why don't we celebrate them? We've been taught that our most meaningful achievements should happen early, quickly, dramatically. But life isn't a highlight reel. It's a slow burn. And some of the most powerful people I know didn't bloom until the world had written them off. Take Vera Wang. She didn't design her first wedding dress until she was 40. Morgan Freeman didn't get his breakout role until he was in his 50s. Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was nearly 50. Samuel L. Jackson didn't land his first major movie role until 46. Colonel Sanders franchised KFC at 65. Were they behind, or were they becoming? You see, we look at the final result and forget the journey. We forget the decades of learning, failing, reinventing, growing. We forget the moments of doubt, the internal battles, the resilience it took to keep going. But that's the real story. That's the miracle. And if their stories tell us anything, it's this: there's no such thing as being too late. You are not a product on a deadline. You are a human being on a soul-level journey. Your life is not meant to be measured in comparison to anyone else's. It's meant to be lived deeply, honestly, and fully. So maybe you haven't found your calling yet. Maybe you're still exploring. Maybe you've tried and failed and started again. That doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're in motion. Maybe you're not late. Maybe you're just laying the foundation for something more meaningful than you can even imagine right now. So stop trying to force the bloom. Trust the soil. Trust the season. Trust your pace. Because your story isn't behind schedule. It's unfolding perfectly in its own time. Your story is not broken. It doesn't matter how messy it feels, how many times you started over, how far you think you've fallen behind. Every part of your journey has value, even the parts you wish you could erase. We live in a culture obsessed with beginnings and endings, with before and after, with transformation. But what about the middle? What about the becoming, the slow, hard, unglamorous process of growth that no one sees? That's where the magic actually happens. That's where you learn who you are. The truth is, your story is sacred, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. The pain you've survived, the resilience you've built, the compassion you've cultivated, all of that is part of your path, and it deserves to be honored. There were moments in my life when I hated my story. I wanted to rewrite it, fast forward through it, pretend it wasn't mine. But eventually I realized something. Every version of me was doing their best with what they knew at the time. And that deserves love. That deserves grace. So today I invite you to do the same. Honor the version of you that tried, that failed, that got back up, that kept going, that stayed soft even when life was hard.
You don't have to wait until you make it to love yourself. You don't have to reach some imaginary finish line to be proud of where you are. You don't have to prove your worth through productivity or perfection. You are worthy now. You are enough now. You are exactly where you need to be, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. So let's stop apologizing for where we are. Let's stop hiding our timelines and minimizing our paths. Let's start telling the truth, our truth, and letting that be enough. Because when you honor your story, you give others permission to do the same. And that's how healing begins. Not in comparison, not in competition, but in compassion. Let's be real. Even when you know you're not behind, even when you understand that everyone has their own timeline, that feeling still creeps in, doesn't it? It usually shows up quietly. You see a friend celebrating something big, an engagement, a promotion, a move across the world, and even though you're happy for them, part of you aches. You start thinking, should I be there too? Then that voice chimes in again. You're falling behind. So what do you do in those moments? When the doubt gets loud and the fear gets louder? Here's what I've learned, not just from books or podcasts, but from the messy, emotional reality of trying to stay grounded when everything feels like it's moving without you. So, to the one watching this and feeling behind, I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are not too late. You are becoming. Every step you've taken, no matter how slow, has mattered. Every tear, every doubt, every time you got back up, it counts. Your story is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. And even if you can't see the full picture yet, trust
that it's being painted in a way only you can understand. So breathe. Keep going. Don't rush your growth. Don't despise your pace. You are not behind. You're on your way. If this video touched you in any way, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.